The audience laughed loudly, almost too quickly, as if they'd been waiting for permission. The bright studio lights bounced off every smirk, every mocking chuckle. On center stage sat Keanu Reeves, quiet, still, and across from him, the host, known for tearing people apart with her wit, leaned forward with a smirk that almost dared him to flinch. "So, Keanu," she began, her voice smooth like poison in a glass, "do you really believe someone's watching over you from up there? After everything you've been through?" She gestured upward as if pointing toward a sky she clearly didn't believe in. The laughter swelled again, but Keanu didn't move. Not a blink. Not a shift. He slowly brought his hand up and touched the small cross around his neck. Just 2 fingers resting gently on it. No defense, no drama. His eyes were steady, calm. But something in that stillness felt like a storm waiting to happen. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. The host blinked, a little thrown off by his silence, and tried again, louder this time. "Seriously? After all that pain, all that loss, you think someone out there still cares about you?" She was expecting an argument, or maybe a breakdown. What she got instead was presence. Keanu simply looked at her, not with anger, not even sadness, just the kind of quiet a person carries when they've walked through fire barefoot. And then, almost too softly for the microphone to catch, he said, "If I'm still here, it wasn't just luck." That one line cut through the studio like a blade. The laughter stopped. The smirks faded. A strange silence crept into the room, thick and uncomfortable, as if no one knew how to breathe anymore. The camera zoomed in, not on Keanu, but on the cross. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't gold. Just a simple piece of metal, hanging from a worn cord. But in that moment, it looked heavier than anything else in the room. The host shifted, visibly unsettled. She chuckled, trying to reset the tone. "Wow, okay. That got heavy real fast. Maybe we should talk about your motorcycles instead?" Keanu gave no reaction. He wasn't playing. He wasn't here to entertain. He was just being. And the audience could feel it. Something had shifted. A crack had opened in the script. The woman who'd been trained to mock now found herself struggling to steer. The man she expected to break had just reminded her, and everyone watching, that pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it just breathes. Then, as the cameras kept rolling, a voice cut through the silence. Not Keanu's. A narrator, soft, reflective, and distant, like someone remembering a story they lived through. What the world saw was a man being mocked, but what they didn't see was the pain he carried quietly, the battles no one broadcasted, the nights he prayed with no answer, and still believed. And as the screen faded for a moment, a single image appeared. A funeral. No press, no red carpet. Just Keanu, standing next to a small casket, his eyes hollow, his body still. No words followed, just the sound of breathing. And somewhere deep in the silence, the audience leaned in. Not for a laugh, but for something they didn't even realize they were hungry for. The silence in the studio wasn't just awkward anymore. It was unsettling. The host fidgeted with her cue cards, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said, voice brittle, "since we're here, let's just go there. Religion, faith, the big invisible guy in the sky." A few people chuckled, but it wasn't the same laugh as before. It sounded nervous now, unsure. She leaned forward again, her tone slipping into something more biting. "You know what I always say. Religion is just a fairy tale for people who are scared to grow up. All that divine plan stuff. Comforting, maybe. But come on. Be real." A louder laugh rose from the back rows, but Keanu didn't move. He didn't even blink. He just placed his fingers gently over the cross again, like he was grounding himself. He didn't roll his eyes, didn't interrupt, just stayed still, as if he'd heard all of this 100 times before and no longer needed to defend anything. The camera caught it. The same simple gesture, the same quiet face. But this time, something else filled the room. Not anger, not tension. It was deeper, like grief that had learned to breathe. As the host continued throwing her lines like darts, a sudden visual appeared on the screen behind them. But it wasn't part of the show. It was a montage. Grainy, black and white. Keanu, years younger, at a hospital hallway. His face pale, his eyes locked on something off-screen. Then another, him sitting on a train alone, staring out the window, a book closed in his lap. Then, a child's casket, white and impossibly small. The audience gasped softly. It wasn't just shock. It was something else. Guilt, maybe. Empathy. The host looked over her shoulder, confused. "What's that?" she asked someone off camera, but the images kept rolling. And then, a voice. Not narration this time, but real testimonies. "I drove him once," a man's voice said. "Just a rideshare job. He tipped me $500. I thought it was a mistake. He just said, 'You were kind.' The world needs more of that." Another voice, a woman now. "My car broke down at a gas station. It was late. No one stopped. But he did. Stayed for over an hour. Didn't even say who he was." Then another. "I was crying on a bench. He sat next to me. Never asked why. Just listened." Back in the studio, the host looked rattled, her usual rhythm gone. She tried to pivot again, her voice shakier now. "You know," she said, "people love to romanticize pain. They think suffering makes someone wise. But it doesn't. It just ruins you." She laughed, but no one laughed with her. Keanu didn't respond. He just looked at her, not judging, not correcting, just seeing her. And in that pause, something cracked. Not on the stage. Inside her. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just a shallow breath. She blinked too fast, like someone trying not to cry on camera. The audience didn't move. They weren't watching a show anymore. They were watching something real. Then Keanu finally spoke. His voice low, calm. But this time, there was weight behind it. "I don't wear this cross for fashion," he said softly. "I wear it for memory, for forgiveness, for survival." The words hit like a slow wave. The host's face changed. She looked at him, really looked, and something in her expression said, she wasn't ready for this. And neither was anyone else. A commercial break was supposed to bring relief. But when the show returned, the air felt heavier. The lights didn't seem as bright, and the laughter didn't bounce the way it did before. The host walked back to her seat, still wearing her smile. But now, it looked like armor barely holding together. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted her mic. She glanced at Keanu, then down at the cards in her lap, and for the first time all night, she hesitated. "Okay," she muttered, mostly to herself. "Let's talk about something real." Keanu didn't shift, didn't blink. He simply waited. She took a long breath, then another, her voice no longer performance-ready. "When I was a kid," she started, eyes fixed on the floor, "I used to pray every night. Tight shut eyes, whispers into the dark. I didn't even know what I was asking for. I just wanted to be normal. I didn't want to feel scared all the time. I didn't want to feel wrong." No one in the audience made a sound. No coughs, no movement. It wasn't suspense anymore. It was sacred. She continued, "And I used to beg, 'Please don't let me go to hell. Please let me be enough.' But nothing ever happened. No sign, no answer, just silence." Her voice cracked now, glassy-eyed. "So I started laughing at it all. The prayers, the books, the people who still believed. I called it fiction, a crutch, because it was easier to mock what I didn't feel than admit how bad I wanted it to be real." The audience watched her fall apart in slow motion. But it didn't feel like collapse. It felt like truth, finally showing its face. Keanu leaned forward slightly, his eyes kind, no trace of pride. No victory, just understanding. "Maybe I didn't laugh at your faith," she whispered. "Maybe I laughed at my pain." Keanu spoke softly, the kind of voice that doesn't ask to be heard. It just is. "No one who suffers while praying is ever truly alone," he said. "Someone always hears, even if you don't know it." For a moment, the entire studio breathed the same breath. A woman in the audience wiped away a tear. Another clutched the cross around her neck like she had forgotten it was even there. The host blinked, as if waking from something. "I used to think silence meant no one was listening," she said. "But maybe I just didn't know how to listen back." The screen behind them slowly faded into another series of silent clips. No narration now, just moments. Keanu sitting at a subway bench, unnoticed. Keanu walking through rain with a stray dog following him. Keanu placing flowers beside an unmarked grave. All in stillness. All in silence. And then, back to the studio. Two people. No stage lights, no applause. Just presence. And then, as if the universe itself was waiting for this, the lights flickered. A glitch. The sound dipped. The room fell into a stillness so pure, it felt unreal. 10 seconds. No words, no sound. Just breathe. Just silence. Just something you can't explain. When the lights returned, they didn't feel the same. Softer. Warmer. As if the entire room had been reset. Not just technically, but spiritually. The audience didn't clap. No one dared speak. Even the crew behind the cameras stood motionless, eyes fixed on what had just happened. Keanu sat exactly as he was, hands resting, cross visible, his presence somehow louder than any words could have been. The host swallowed hard. Her voice came out shaky, fragile. "I don't know what that was," she said. "But it didn't feel like nothing." Keanu finally turned to her, his expression unreadable, but deeply human. "It's never been about winning a debate," he said quietly. "It's about touching a soul." And right there, something inside her broke. Or maybe it opened. She looked down, then up, her voice softer than ever before. "I think I spent so long trying to sound smart, trying to control the room, control the story, that I forgot what it feels like to just be real." The audience leaned in, not physically, but emotionally. Everyone in that room, and everyone who would watch the clip online in the hours to come, felt it. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was healing. What followed wasn't scripted. She reached forward, gently brushing a tear from her cheek. "All my life I thought faith was weakness," she whispered, "because I was afraid to believe, afraid to be let down again. But now, I'm starting to wonder if maybe silence was never emptiness. Maybe it was waiting." Keanu didn't say anything. He didn't need to. His eyes said enough. What no one expected came next. Backstage, someone had recorded a conversation during the break. A hidden phone camera captured voices, producers, strategizing. "Push the God stuff. Make her poke him. We need a reaction," one voice said. Another replied, "He's too polite to fight back. That's why it'll go viral." The clip leaked online within the hour. It exploded. What began as a trending moment turned into a reckoning. Hashtags flooded every platform. Respect faith. War, grace and silence. He didn't fight back. Celebrities, journalists, even non-believers stepped in. Not for a side, but for a moment. A moment where someone chose peace over performance. Where someone stayed grounded while the world tried to shake him. And Keanu? He didn't give interviews. No tweets, no speeches, just one image, posted quietly the next day. A candle, a worn cross, and beside it, a folded note. "You were heard." The host left the show weeks later. No scandal, no statement, just a video, shot in natural light, no makeup, no filter. She looked into the camera and said, "I mocked what I didn't understand. But I understand now. Not everything real needs to be loud." The video reached millions, not because it was dramatic, but because it was human. In the weeks that followed, something shifted in people. Quiet acts of kindness. People wearing their symbols again. Not to preach, but to belong. Faith, belief, presence. It didn't matter what people called it. What mattered was that something real had broken through the noise. And in the final moment of this story, the screen faded into one last image. Keanu Reeves, walking alone through a quiet park at sunset. The same cross hanging from his neck. No crowds, no spotlight. Just him. Just being. And maybe that's the whole message. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to live the truth loud enough that even silence starts to echo.